Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Lazarus Monroe checked his watch as he stepped out of his Audi. 8:15. He was fashionably late to his own birthday dinner, a power move he'd learned early in his career. It kept people waiting, reminded them of his value. The valet nodded respectfully, taking his keys. "Happy birthday, Mr. Monroe." Laz adjusted his tailored navy suit. "Thanks, Miguel." He slipped the young man a $100 bill. "How's your mother doing after the surgery?" "Much better, sir. That specialist you recommended, she's walking again." Laz nodded, his expression softening briefly. "Good." He headed toward the entrance of La Veta, Chicago's most exclusive restaurant, where reservations were secured months in advance unless you were Lazarus Monroe. The maitre d' straightened when he saw Laz approach. "Mr. Monroe, always a pleasure." He gestured toward the private dining room. "Your party is already seated." Laz moved through the restaurant with the quiet confidence of someone who belonged wherever he chose to be. At 38, he had built an empire from nothing, turning a startup into a tech giant through sheer will and strategic brilliance. Success clung to him like an expensive cologne as he approached the private room. Laughter spilled out his wife's laugh, distinctive and musical. Amelia had insisted on planning this dinner. "Let me handle everything," she'd said with a smile that, in retrospect, didn't quite reach her eyes. "You deserve to be surprised." He pushed open the door, and the surprise hit him like a physical blow. Amelia sat at the head of the table, his spot, wearing a red dress that seemed chosen specifically to draw every eye in the room. Beside her sat Rhett Calloway, his hand resting casually on the back of her chair, fingers brushing against her bare shoulder. The room fell silent as Laz entered. 12 people stared at him, Amelia's friends mostly, the social climbers and trust fund beneficiaries she'd collected since their marriage. Not a single person from his inner circle was present. "Laz," Amelia said, her voice carrying a note of mock surprise. "You're late to your own party." He scanned the table, noting the seats. 12 people, 12 chairs, all occupied. "Seems like you started without me," he said, his voice leveled despite the anger building inside him. Rhett Calloway raised his glass. "The birthday boy arrives." His smile was sharp, predatory. 5 years ago, Laz had cut ties with Rhett after discovering his former associate had been skimming funds from investors. Now here he was, in Laz's celebration, sitting next to Laz's wife. That Amelia's red lips curved into a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "There's no seat for you here." She gestured dismissively. "Go sit on the street." The table erupted in laughter, practiced, theatrical laughter that told Laz everything he needed to know. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was orchestrated humiliation that he stood perfectly still, his face a mask of composure, while his mind worked at lightning speed. 10 years of marriage, dissolving before his eyes. The signs had been there: Amelia's increasingly frequent work events, the unexplained charges on their shared accounts, the way she'd grown distant. He'd attributed it to a rough patch. Now he understood it was something else entirely. "Nothing to say, Laz?" Rhett goaded, his arm now fully around Amelia's shoulders. "That's not like you." Laz adjusted his cufflinks platinum, a gift from his sister Nova. "I wouldn't want to interrupt what seems like a carefully planned evening." His voice was calm, betraying none of the rage coursing through him. "Enjoy your dinner." He turned and walked out, ignoring the renewed laughter behind him. His steps didn't falter as he moved through the restaurant, past the concerned look of the maitre d', out into the cool Chicago night. Only when he was safely inside his car did he allow himself a moment of raw emotion, his knuckles turning white as he gripped the steering wheel. The engine of the Audi purred to life, a comforting sound in the storm of Laz's thoughts. He pulled away from La Veta, muscle memory guiding him through the familiar streets of downtown Chicago, while his mind dissected the evening's events that he'd been played. The realization settled like ice in his veins. Traffic lights cast alternating red and green glows across his face as he mentally cataloged the inconsistencies of the past few months. Amelia's networking dinners that ran until the early morning. The hushed phone calls that ended abruptly when he entered room. The unexplained withdrawals from their joint account small enough not to raise immediate alarms, but substantial in their totality. Idiot, he muttered to himself, taking a sharp turn toward Lakeshore Drive. The skyline of Chicago glittered beside him, a constellation of lights reflecting on the dark surface of Lake Michigan. He'd been too busy, too trusting, too confident in what he'd built. His phone rang through the car's speakers. Nova's name flashed on the screen. "Not now," he said, declining the call. His sister would immediately sense something was wrong. Nova had never liked Amelia, had warned him years ago about her materialistic nature. "She's with you for what you can give her," Nova had said. Laz had dismissed it as sisterly overprotection. Now he wondered what else he'd missed, but he pulled into a secluded spot overlooking the lake and killed the engine. The city hummed distantly as he retrieved his phone and scrolled through recent bank statements. The pattern was clearer now that he was looking for irregular transfers to an account he didn't recognize, always just under $10,000 to avoid triggering automatic notifications. Then he checked his calendar, comparing it against Amelia's. The nights she claimed to be at charity galas or business dinners aligned perfectly with gaps in Rhett's public appearances. How long had they been planning this? The question burned in his mind as he dialed a number he kept for emergencies only. Augustine Devlin answered on the second ring. "Unusual hour for a call, Lazarus," Gus said, his voice gravelly from years of expensive cigars and whiskey. "I need your services." Laz stared out at the dark water. "Divorce proceedings?" "Immediately." A brief silence. "Amelia?" "Yes." "Evidence?" "I'll have it compiled by morning." "She's been siphoning money, and she's involved with Rhett Calloway." Gus swore quietly. "The same Calloway you caught defrauding investors?" "The very same." Laz's jaw tightened. "I want everything frozen. Every account with my name on it. Every asset we share. I want her cut off completely, starting tonight." "That's aggressive, even for me." Gus paused. "You understand this means war?" Laz watched a boat move slowly across the distant horizon, its lights a tiny flicker against the darkness. "She declared war tonight. I'm just responding in kind. Give me an hour. I'll have the emergency motions filed electronically. Anything with both your names will be frozen pending judicial review. Make it half an hour. Done." Gus's tone shifted, becoming the voice that had earned him the nickname the Executioner in Chicago's legal circles. "And Laz? Document everything. Every text, every email, every receipt. This won't be pretty." "I understand." Laz ended the call and sat motionless. Watching the city lights reflect off the water, he thought about the first time he'd met Amelia at a gallery opening in River North. She'd been captivating, laughing at his jokes, asking intelligent questions about his business. He believed he'd found someone who saw him not just his success or his money, but him. What a fool he'd been. His phone buzzed with a text from Gus. "Motion filed. Accounts frozen. Notification will hit the court's public record by morning." Laz started the car again. There would be no going home tonight, not to the penthouse he'd shared with Amelia. Instead, he drove toward his company's building, where he kept a private apartment for late work nights. As he navigated the empty streets, a cold clarity replaced his initial shock. Amelia and Rhett had orchestrated tonight as a public humiliation, a power play designed to throw him off balance. They'd expected him to cause a scene, to break down, to beg. They didn't know him at all. Lazarus Monroe hadn't built an empire by breaking under pressure. He'd made his fortune by turning setbacks into opportunities, by seeing 3 moves ahead when others could barely see one. By the time he reached his building, the last traces of emotion had been locked away, replaced by strategic calculation. He would not rush. He would not act from anger. He would dissect this problem like any other business challenge and solve it with precision. As he rode the private elevator to the top floor, one thought crystallized in his mind. They would regret the day they decided to betray him. Morning sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Laz's office apartment, catching on the glass and steel that dominated the space. He stood by the window, fresh from shower, dressed in a crisp white shirt and dark slacks, watching the city wake up below him. He hadn't slept, but the adrenaline of strategic planning kept him sharp. His phone vibrated on the desk. Roman Sinclair, his oldest friend and the owner of Elysium, Chicago's most exclusive nightclub. Ro, he answered, voice steady. What the hell, man? Roman's voice carried the rough edge of concern. I just saw the Tribune headline. Tech mogul Lazarus Monroe files for divorce. Freezes assets, cheating wife left scrambling. You want to tell me what's going on? Laz raised an eyebrow. Gus had worked faster than expected. The story had already broken. Exactly what it sounds like. And you didn't think to call me? I had to find out from the damn paper. A pause. Was it Calloway? Tell me it wasn't Calloway. It was. Roman swore creatively. That snake. After what you did for him. Ancient history. Let's cut him off. Listen, I need information. Anything you can get on Rhett's movements over the past 6 months. Who he meets with, where he goes, what he's planning. Consider it done. The sound of typing came through the phone. You know, half of Chicago's power players end up in my VIP section eventually. I'll have intel by this evening. Another pause. What about Amelia? What do you need on her? Nothing yet. Just watch. See who reaches out to her, who distances themselves. And what's your next move? Laz checked his watch. Right now, I'm going to work. Business as usual. Roman laughed without humor. Cold as ice. That's why we've been friends since college. His tone sobered. You okay, though? Really? For a moment, Laz considered the question. Was he okay? His wife had betrayed him, conspired against him, humiliated him publicly. By any normal metric, he should be devastated. Instead, he felt oddly liberated. The confusion of the past months had clarified into perfect understanding. The path forward was clear. I'm fine, he said finally. She made her choice. Now she gets to live with it. After ending the call, Laz stepped into the elevator, descending to the main offices of Monroe Technologies. His assistant, Eliza, met him in the lobby, surprise evident in her expression. Mr. Monroe, I didn't expect you in today. Happy belated. Thank you, Eliza. He accepted the coffee she handed him. Clear my morning. I need to speak with the executive team at 9. And give me the file on Project Orpheus. Yes, sir. She fell in a step beside him as they moved toward his office. Also, Mrs. Monroe has called 7 times this morning. Should I? Mrs. Monroe no longer has access to this building or any of our facilities. Please update security accordingly. Eliza's professionalism didn't waver, though her eyes widened slightly. Understood, sir. And Eliza? He paused at his office door. Any calls from Augustine Devlin come directly to me, regardless of what I'm doing. He closed the door behind him, settling at his desk to review the day's agenda. Business continued. The world kept turning. He would show no weakness, no disruption, no hint that his personal life had imploded overnight. 3 hours later, midway through a strategy meeting, his phone buzzed with a security alert. Amelia was in the lobby. Excuse me, he said to his team, standing smoothly. Take 10 minutes. I'll be right back. He found her by the reception desk, wearing oversized sunglasses despite the building's dim lighting. Her hair was pulled back severely, her posture rigid with anger. 2 security guards flanked her at a respectful distance. What is the meaning of this? She hissed as he approached. My cards are all declined. I was humiliated at Bergdorf's. Laz regarded her with clinical detachment. This woman, who had shared his bed for a decade, now seemed like a stranger, or perhaps he was seeing her clearly for the first time. Did you expect something different? His voice was quiet, controlled. After last night's performance? She removed her sunglasses, revealing eyes reddened either from crying or lack of sleep. It was a joke, Laz. A stupid birthday prank that went too far. Rhett suggested. He nodded as if something made sense. Rhett suggested. And you always do what Rhett suggests. Her expression hardened. You're overreacting, making a spectacle of us both. The Tribune, Laz? Really? I didn't call the Tribune. But you're not denying the story, are you? She stepped closer, lowering her voice. People are talking. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. I imagine it hasn't. He glanced at his watch. Is there something specific you need, Amelia? I'm in the middle of a meeting. For a moment, genuine shock crossed her face. She had expected tears, perhaps, or anger, anything but this cold dismissal. I need access to my accounts, she said finally. You can't just cut me off completely. It's illegal. Actually, it's perfectly legal when there's evidence of financial misappropriation. She held her gaze steadily. The withdrawals to the Cayman account were particularly sloppy. Gus has all the documentation. Color drained from her face. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. He nodded to the security guards. Mrs. Monroe was just leaving. You can't do this, she said, her voice rising as one of the guards stepped forward. You think you're so clever? You have no idea what's coming. Laz smiled then, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Neither do you. He turned and walked back toward the elevator, her protests fading behind him. As the doors closed, he caught a final glimpse of her being escorted toward the exit, her composure cracking, while employees pretended not to stare. The elevator ascended smoothly. By the time it reached his floor, Laz had already shifted his focus back to business. The morning's display would ripple through Chicago's social circles within hours. Amelia's humiliation at being publicly escorted from his building would cement the narrative. Lazarus Monroe was not to be betrayed. He returned to the conference room, where his team waited expectantly. Let's continue, he said, retaking his seat. As I was saying about the Asian market expansion, 3 days after the restaurant incident, Laz sat in Augustine Devlin's corner office, surrounded by the trappings of legal success, leather-bound books, awards, and a view of Chicago that justified the hourly rate Gus commanded. The lawyer pushed a folder across his immaculate desk. You were right, Gus said, his silver hair catching the afternoon light. It goes deeper than we thought. Laz opened the folder, scanning the contents with practiced efficiency. Bank statements, text message transcripts, hotel receipts, photographs, the sum total of a betrayal months in the making. How long? Laz asked, his voice neutral as he examined a photo of Amelia and Rhett entering a hotel in New York. Based on the financial trail, at least 7 months. Gus leaned back in his chair. The affair might have started earlier, but the conspiracy to take your assets began in March. Laz turned a page, finding a transcript of text messages between Amelia and Rhett. His eyes caught on specific exchanges. Rhett, he'll never see it coming. Trust me. Amelia, what if he contests it? Rhett, by the time he figures it out, we'll be untouchable. Your prenup becomes void if he's unfaithful. Remember? Amelia, but he's not. Rhett, he doesn't have to be. We just need evidence that looks convincing. Laz's jaw tightened imperceptibly. They were planning to frame me for infidelity. Gus nodded. Classic move to invalidate the prenuptial agreement. They hired a private investigator to follow you 3 months ago. He tapped another document. Fortunately for us, the PI kept detailed invoices that my team discovered. No actual evidence of infidelity was ever found, obviously. What else? Amelia has been systematically cataloging your assets, focusing on those that aren't explicitly covered in the prenup. Gus selected another document from the folder. And here's where it gets interesting. Rhett registered 3 shell companies in the Caymans this spring. Money from your joint accounts has been flowing there in small increments. Laz stared out the window at the city sprawled below. The birthday dinner. That was their first public move. A calculated humiliation. Gus agreed. I suspect they wanted to provoke a violent reaction, create witnesses who would testify to your unstable behavior later in court. Instead, I walked away, throwing their entire timeline into chaos. Gus smiled thinly. They weren't prepared for your counterattack. The asset freeze has them scrambling. Laz closed the folder. What's our next step? Legally, we continue gathering evidence. Your prenup is solid, but with what they were planning, we need to be airtight. Gus tapped his fingers on the desk. But I'm guessing you're not just asking about legal strategies. No. Laz's expression remained unreadable. I want to understand exactly what they intended to take from me. Gus nodded, retrieving another folder from his desk drawer. This one was thicker, labeled with a red tab. This is everything they targeted. Properties, investments, your company shares, even personal items. As Laz flipped through the new documents, a pattern emerged. The assets Amelia had focused on weren't just valuable, they were meaningful. The brownstone where he'd started his first company. The vintage watch his father had given him before dying. The beachfront property in Michigan where he went to think. They weren't just trying to take his money. They were trying to erase the very foundations of his life. I see. He closed the folder with deliberate care. One more question. How much does Amelia actually know about my business operations? Gus considered this. Based on these documents, she understands your public holdings, but has minimal insight into your private investments or corporate structure. Rhett's knowledge would be similarly outdated. He hasn't been connected to your operations in 5 years. Laz stood, straightening his jacket. Good. Keep me updated on any developments. Lazarus. Gus's voice stopped him at the door. They've retained Patricia Winters. Laz paused. Patricia Winters was a shark, known for representing high-profile divorces with a scorched-earth approach. Interesting choice. She'll make this ugly. Let her try. Laz's expression betrayed nothing. They've already shown their hand. Now it's my turn. He left Gus's office and stepped into the waiting car, where his driver waited silently. Instead of heading back to his office, he directed the car toward a different part of the city, the financial district where his sister Nova worked as a managing director at one of Chicago's most prestigious investment firms. Nova was waiting in the lobby of her building, her sharp eyes taking in his appearance with sisterly concern as she slid into the car beside him. "You look like hell," she said by way of greeting. Charming as always, Nevada. He used his childhood nickname for her, a small concession to their shared history. "I've been calling you. I've been busy," she snorted. "Yes, I gathered from the headlines. Tech mogul's unfaithful wife gets frozen out. Subtle. I didn't write it, but you're not unhappy about it." Her eyes narrowed. "I warned you about her." Laz sighed. "If you brought me here for I told you so, we can skip it. I brought you here because you need me." She pulled out her tablet, calling up a series of documents. Rhett's financial situation isn't as solid as he pretends. He's leveraged to the hilt, and his latest venture is bleeding cash. Laz raised an eyebrow. "How did you?" "Please." She waved dismissively. "You think you're the only one with resources? I've had him investigated since the day he slithered back into Chicago." Her expression softened slightly. "I knew he was trouble. I just didn't realize how much." For the first time in days, Laz felt a genuine smile tugging at his lips. Nova had always been his fiercest defender, from playground bullies to business rivals. "Show me," he said, turning his attention to her tablet. For the next hour, as the car circled the city, Nova laid out Rhett's financial vulnerabilities with surgical precision. By the time they parted ways, Laz had a clearer understanding of not just what he was facing, but how to dismantle it. That evening, he returned to his company apartment, the pieces of a comprehensive strategy falling into place in his mind. Amelia and Rhett had spent months planning his downfall. He would need allies to ensure their plan failed spectacularly. He picked up his phone and dialed Roman's private line. "I need a meeting," he said when Roman answered. "Tomorrow night. Your place. And Ro, make sure it's completely secure." The private room above Elysium thrummed with the muted bass from the nightclub below, the sound reduced to a distant heartbeat. Roman Sinclair had designed this space as a sanctuary where Chicago's elite could speak freely, secure from prying eyes and ears. Tonight, it served as a war room. Laz stood at the head of the table, looking at the two people he trusted most in the world. Nova sat with perfect posture, her analytical mind evident in the precise way she organized documents before her. Roman lounged in apparent relaxation, though his sharp eyes missed nothing. "Thank you for coming," Laz began, his voice steady. "What I'm about to ask goes beyond normal friendship or family loyalty." Roman grinned, the expression making him look younger than his 38 years. "Finally, something interesting. I was getting bored with just running the most exclusive club in the Midwest." Nova rolled her eyes. "Ignore him. What's the plan?" Laz activated the digital display on the wall, bringing up a series of documents and images. "Amelia and Red have been planning this for months. Their goal was to invalidate my prenup, claim half my assets, and disappear before I realized what had happened." "Ambitious," Roman commented. "Stupid, but ambitious. They underestimated me," Laz continued. "But they still have resources and desperation on their side. Patricia Winters is now representing Amelia." Nova winced. "That woman is ruthless. Exactly why we need to move quickly." Laz tapped the screen, bringing up a new set of documents. I've divided our response into 3 phases. The screen displayed a flowchart labeled Phase 1, Financial Isolation. First, we cut off their resources completely. Nova, this is where you come in. His sister leaned forward. I'm listening. I need you to track every dollar Amelia has moved. Find where it's hidden and make it inaccessible. Red's companies are over-leveraged. Apply pressure to his investors. Create doubt. Nova's smile was cold. Consider done. I have contacts at every major bank in the city. By this time tomorrow, Rhett Calloway will be facing margin calls he can't cover. Laz nodded. Roman, I need your social network. Amelia's entire identity is built around her status. I want that dismantled. Roman cracked his knuckles. You want the whisper campaign to start? She won't be welcome in any establishment that matters by the end of the week. Be subtle, Laz cautioned. No direct accusations. Just enough questions to make people uncomfortable associating with her. Trust me, Roman said, his usual joviality replaced with purpose. I built my business on understanding social currency. By the time I'm done, her name will be toxic in this town. Laz advanced to the next screen. Phase 2, Psychological Pressure. This is where it gets more complex, he said. It's not enough to cut them off. They need to turn on each other. Nova frowned. How do you plan to accomplish that? By letting them see exactly what they've lost. Laz brought up a series of photographs Rhett with various women, none of them Amelia. Roman's security team captured these over the past month. Rhett hasn't been faithful to Amelia any more than she was to me. Roman whistled. That one's the daughter of State Senator Mitchell. Bold move, even for Rhett. Amelia doesn't know this yet, Laz continued. She believes they're partners, equal conspirators. She needs to understand that she's just another pawn in Rhett's game. And how do we deliver this revelation? Nova asked, anonymously, gradually. I want her to doubt everything, especially him. Roman nodded slowly. And for Rhett, we let him believe he's winning, right until the moment he loses everything. Laz's expression remained neutral, but his eyes held a cold determination. He values his reputation as a business genius above all else. That's what we'll take from him. The final screen appeared. Phase 3, Complete Dismantling. The endgame, Laz said quietly. When they're desperate, isolated, and turning on each other, we deliver the final blow. He outlined the last phase of his plan, watching as Nova's eyes widened and Roman let out a low whistle. That's... Nova hesitated. Thorough. They plan to take everything from me. Laz replied, his voice level. Not just my money, but my reputation, my company, my future. They would have left me with nothing. So you return the favor, Roman concluded. Precisely. Laz turned off the display. I'm not asking for blind loyalty. If anyone wants to walk away from this, now's the time. Nova stood, straightening her jacket. When Amelia humiliated you, she insulted our entire family. I'm in. Roman raised an imaginary glass. To making sure no one ever crosses Lazarus Monroe again. Count me in. Laz looked at his sister and his oldest friend, feeling a surge of gratitude. Thank you. Don't thank us yet, Nova said, already gathering her things. Thank us when Amelia and Rhett are wondering what hit them. As they left Elysium that night, their roles clearly defined, Laz felt the first real sense of control since the night at La Veta. The game was no longer being played on Amelia and Rhett's terms. Now, they were operating on his. The next morning, the counterattack began. Nova moved with swift efficiency, contacting financial institutions where Rhett had leveraged investments. Subtle inquiries about his company's performance sent ripples of concern through his investor network. By noon, 3 major backers had requested emergency meetings to discuss their positions. Simultaneously, Roman activated his extensive social network. Chicago's elite operated on information and exclusivity, and Roman controlled both through Elysium. Carefully placed comments. Did you hear about Lazarus Monroe? Such a shame what Amelia did. Spread through the city's upper echelons. The birthday dinner humiliation became a cautionary tale, with Amelia cast as the villain. Laz himself maintained a perfect facade of business as usual. He attended meetings, made decisions, appeared at a charity event where he donated generously and charmed everyone present. The message was clear. Lazarus Monroe remained unaffected by personal betrayal. He was, if anything, stronger than before. 3 days into their campaign, the first results became evident. Rhett's newest venture announced an organizational restructuring after 2 key investors withdrew support. Amelia arrived at her favorite salon to find her standing appointment had been accidentally canceled. Her social media accounts, once flooded with comment from Chicago's social scene, grew noticeably quiet when Laz received word that Amelia had been turned away from Elysium. At capacity this evening, Mrs. Monroe, he allowed himself a small moment of satisfaction. Phase 1 was proceeding exactly as planned. E-Peninsula, exactly 1 week after the divorce filing, made headlines. Plain brown wrapping, no return address, delivered by courier who disappeared before questions could be asked. Inside, she found a single photograph. Rhett at a restaurant in Miami, his arm around a blonde woman who was decidedly not Amelia. The timestamp showed a date from 2 months earlier when Rhett had claimed to be on a business trip to secure funding for their plan, and oh no to accompany the image. None was needed. The second package arrived 3 days later. This time, a flash drive containing audio for what appeared to be a private conversation between Rhett and an unidentified male. "What about Amelia when this is over?" the unknown voice asked. Rhett's laugh was unmistakable. "What about her? Once Monroe's assets are liquidated, she'll have served her purpose." "Cool, man. Business," Rhett replied casually. "Besides, she's not exactly the type you build a future with. More like the type who helps you afford the future you want." Laz received reports of each delivery from the security team he'd hired to monitor Amelia's movements. He didn't need to witness her reaction personally. The aftermath told him everything he needed to know. After the second package, Amelia called Rhett 17 times in 2 hours. When he finally answered, their conversation in the hotel lobby was heated enough that security had to intervene. Phase 2 is progressing well, Nova noted during their weekly update in Laz's office. Rhett's company stock dropped another 15% yesterday after the anonymous tip to the SEC about accounting irregularities. Roman, sprawled on Laz's office couch, scrolled through his phone. And Amelia tried to get into the Thompson Charity Gala last night. Was told her name wasn't on the list. He looked up with a satisfied smile. She created quite a scene. It's already making the rounds on social media. Laz nodded, taking in the information without visible reaction. And the legal front? Nova glanced at her tablet. Gus says Patricia Winters has requested a meeting. Reading between the lines, Amelia is feeling the pressure and wants to negotiate. Deny the request, Laz said immediately. It's too early. That's what Gus recommended. Nova studied her brother's face. How are you holding up? Laz shrugged slightly. I'm fine. Roman snorted. You always say that, even when you're not. In this case, it's true. Laz stood, walking to the window, overlooking the Chicago skyline. I expected to feel something. Anger, betrayal, loss. He shook his head. Instead, I feel clarity. Revenge will do that, Roman observed. This isn't revenge, Laz corrected him. It's justice. They conspired to destroy me. I'm simply ensuring they face the consequences of their actions. Nova exchanged a look with Roman, but said nothing. After a moment, she changed the subject. The third package is ready for delivery tomorrow. Audio from Rhett's meeting with a private investigator discussing how to fabricate evidence against you. Laz turned back to face them. Good. And the video? Roman grinned. Edited and ready to go. The security footage from the Drake show's Rhett meeting with 3 different women over 2 weeks. All spliced together with timestamps. Very damning. Send it the day after tomorrow, Laz decided. Give the audio time to sink in first. As they finalized the week's strategy, Laz maintained his composed exterior. He didn't share with them the dreams that sometimes invaded his sleep memories of happier times with Amelia before everything unraveled. Those moments of weakness remained private, burned away each morning by the cold reality of her betrayal. That evening, he attended a tech industry award ceremony where Monroe Technologies was being honored for innovation. The ballroom fell momentarily silent when he entered, conversations halting as Chicago's elite assessed his demeanor, hungry for signs of a man undone by betrayal. What they saw instead was Lazarus Monroe at his most commanding, impeccably dressed, confident, engaging easily with industry leaders and politicians. If anything, he seemed more focused, more formidable than before. Across the room, he caught sight of Rhett Calloway, looking significantly less composed. Rhett's usual swagger had diminished, replaced by a tense alertness as he checked his phone repeatedly. The financial pressure was clearly taking its toll. Their eyes met briefly. Rhett's widened in surprise, then narrowed with poorly concealed hatred. Laz simply raised his champagne glass in a subtle toast before turning away, dismissing Rhett as unworthy of further attention. Later, as he accepted an award for technological innovation, Laz delivered a brief speech that made no reference to his personal situation. Instead, he spoke about resilience and adaptation qualities that separated successful enterprises from failures. In business, as in life, he concluded, looking directly at Rhett, the ability to withstand pressure reveals one's true character. The audience applauded enthusiastically, many rising to their feet. The message had been received. Lazarus Monroe remained unbroken. That night, the third package was delivered to Amelia's hotel suite, containing the promised audio of Rhett discussing his plans to frame Laz. By morning, she had checked out of the peninsula and moved to a less prominent hotel under an assumed name. The psychological war was working exactly as intended. 2 days later, Laz attended a board meeting where his company's quarterly performance was being discussed. Despite the personal turmoil, Monroe Technologies had posted record profits, largely due to Laz's increased focus on work as a distraction from his collapsing marriage. His phone vibrated with a text from Roman. Video delivered. Sources say I completely lost it. Screaming match with are in public. Called him every name in the book. Security footage available if you want it. Laz didn't respond immediately. The systematic dismantling of Amelia and Rhett's alliance was proceeding even faster than he had anticipated. Soon, they would be completely isolated from society, from resources, and from each other. Only then would he deliver the final blow. That evening, as he worked late in his office, Augustine Devlin called with an update. Patricia Winters reached out again. Gus reported, Amelia is requesting a private meeting with you. No lawyers, no witnesses. A trap. Laz responded immediately. Almost certainly. Probably hoping to record something they can use against you. Laz considered his options. Tell them I'll consider it next week. Let them stew a little longer. Will do. Gus paused. Just so you know, the narrative is shifting. Society pages are painting Amelia as increasingly unstable. Her outbursts aren't helping her case. And Rhett, rumors of financial trouble are growing louder. 2 board members resigned from his company today. The stock dropped another 12%. Laz ended the call and sat in the darkness of his office, city lights creating patterns across his desk. The plan was working perfectly, almost too perfectly. Amelia and Rhett were unraveling faster than expected, their desperation growing by the day. It was time to prepare for the final phase. 1 month after the night at La Veta, Laz sat in Gus's office reviewing the evidence that would complete his systematic dismantling of Amelia and Rhett. The past weeks had seen their gradual unraveling. Just as he had planned, Rhett's business empire teetered on the edge of collapse. After Nova's careful pressure on key investors, confidence in his ventures had plummeted. 3 consecutive quarters of hidden losses had been exposed by anonymous whistleblowers. His access to capital had dried up completely. Amelia had fared no better. Locked out of the social circles that had defined her identity, she'd grown increasingly erratic. The steady stream of anonymous revelations about Rhett's infidelity and ulterior motives had shattered whatever trust had existed between them. Now they were making a desperate play, planning to flee to Miami with whatever assets they had managed to salvage. They've booked flights for tomorrow evening, Gus confirmed, sliding a printout across his desk. Private jet, false names, but our sources confirmed it's them. Laz nodded, unsurprised. And the offshore accounts? Nova traced them all. Gus tapped a folder. 6 accounts spread across the Caymans, Bermuda, and Switzerland. Approximately $8 million total, mostly your money, siphoned over the past year. And the IRS investigation. Gus allowed himself a small smile. The anonymous tip was very detailed. Agents have already frozen the accounts, pending investigation. They're particularly interested in the fact that none of this income was declared on Amelia's tax returns for the past 3 years. Laz absorbed this information with cool detachment. What about Rhett's legal situation? Even worse than we hoped. Gus opened another file. Once we provided federal authorities with evidence of his past financial crimes, they discovered a pattern going back nearly a decade. Securities fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion. He's looking at serious jail time. When will they move? The arrest warrant is being processed now. Agents will likely take him into custody before the end of the day. Laz stood, walking to the window. Chicago spread below him, the city where he had built his life, the city where Amelia and Rhett had tried to destroy him. And the auction? He asked without turning. Scheduled for next week. Given the asset freeze and pending legal judgments, the court approved the liquidation of Amelia's personal property to cover potential settlements. Gus paused. Everything will be sold: jewelry, clothing, cars. All the trappings of the lifestyle you provided. Laz turned back to face his lawyer. Make sure I have access to bid on select items. Gus raised an eyebrow, but nodded. I'll arrange it. Later that afternoon, Laz received confirmation that federal agents had arrested Rhett Calloway as he attempted to enter his office building. The footage, captured by multiple news outlets, showed Rhett being led away in handcuffs, his expression a mixture of shock and fury. Laz watched the coverage from his office, his face revealing nothing. When his phone rang with Amelia's number, he let it go to voicemail. She had called 17 times since Rhett's arrest, each message more desperate than the last. Roman arrived as evening fell, carrying a bottle of 30-year-old scotch. Thought you might want to celebrate, he said, placing 2 glasses on Laz's desk. Rhett's arrest is all over the news. Laz accepted a glass but didn't drink immediately. It's not a celebration. It's the natural conclusion. Roman studied his friend. You know, most men would show some emotion at this point. Satisfaction, at least. What would that accomplish? Laz swirled the amber liquid in his glass. They made a calculated decision to betray me. Now they face the consequences. It's simple cause and effect. Nothing simple about what you've done, Roman countered. You dismantled their entire lives piece by piece. That's not just business, that's personal. Laz finally took a sip of his scotch, letting the burn settle in his chest before responding. They made it personal the moment they decided I didn't deserve a seat at my own birthday dinner. His phone rang again. Amelia. This time he answered, putting it on speaker. Lazarus. Her voice was ragged, desperate. You have to help me. They're saying I could face criminal charges. They've frozen everything. I have nothing. I'm aware, he replied calmly. This has gone far enough, she pleaded. Whatever you think I did, this punishment is excessive. We were married for 10 years. 9 years and 7 months, he corrected. And during that time, you conspired with Rhett Calloway to defraud me, humiliate me, and destroy everything I built. That's not. The evidence suggests otherwise. A moment of silence, then her voice hardened. You won't get away with this. I still have options. Do you? He kept his tone neutral. Your social circle has abandoned you. Your lover is facing federal charges. Your assets are frozen. The IRS is investigating you for tax fraud. He paused. What exactly are these options you mentioned? The sound of her ragged breathing filled the room. Roman watched the exchange with fascination, as if witnessing a chess master deliver a long-planned checkmate. What do you want from me? She finally asked. Nothing. Laz's voice remained perfectly level. I wanted you to understand exactly what it means to betray me. I believe that lesson has been delivered. He ended the call without waiting for her response. Roman whistled softly. Cold, precise, Laz corrected. They needed to understand that actions have consequences. The next morning brought news that Amelia had been questioned by IRS investigators regarding the undeclared offshore accounts. Her lawyer, Patricia Winters, had withdrawn from the case, citing irreconcilable differences with her client legal speak for non-payment or impossible demands. Nova joined Laz for lunch, bringing updated financial reports. Red's company is filing for bankruptcy protection, she informed him. The stock is worthless. Everyone connected to him is running for cover. And the properties? Laz asked, all seized as potential evidence or frozen pending legal outcomes. She studied her brother's face. Is it enough yet? He considered the question carefully. Almost. The final piece came together the following week at the court-ordered auction of Amelia's personal effects. Held in a sterile government building rather than the glamorous auction houses she had frequented, the event attracted a crowd of curious onlookers and bargain hunters. Laz attended anonymously, having instructed a representative to bid on his behalf. He watched from the back as Amelia's carefully curated life was sold piece by piece, designer dresses, handbags, shoes, all going for fractions of their original cost. His representative secured only one item, Amelia's wedding ring, a custom-designed platinum band with a flawless 5-carat diamond. Laz had spent months finding the perfect stone when he proposed. Now he paid 10 times its current value to guarantee he obtained it. That evening, in his private office, he studied the ring that had once symbolized their commitment. Then, methodically, he arranged for it to be melted down and reduced to a formless lump of precious metal worthless in its new state, just as their vows had proven to be. When Nova asked why he would destroy something of such value, he simply responded, "Some things need to end completely." With that final symbolic act, Lazarus Monroe closed the chapter on Amelia and Rhett. Their attempt to destroy him had instead led to their own destruction, a lesson Chicago's elite would not soon forget. 6 months later, Chicago had largely moved on from the scandal that had captivated its social circles. New dramas, new alliances, and new betrayals occupied the city's attention. But the cautionary tale of those who had crossed Lazarus Monroe lingered beneath the surface, a whispered warning. Laz himself had emerged stronger. Monroe Technologies had expanded into new markets, its stock price climbing steadily. His reputation for business acumen remained untarnished, if anything, enhanced by his methodical response to personal betrayal that on a crisp autumn evening, he attended the annual Tech Innovation Gala at the Chicago Art Institute, an event that gathered the city's most influential figures. As he moved through the crowd, conversations shifted subtly, people still curious about the man who had so thoroughly dismantled those who betrayed him. Roman appeared at his side, drink in hand. Quite a different scene from last year's gala, he observed. Remember? Amelia spent the entire evening positioning herself as the power behind the throne. Laz allowed himself a small nod. Times change. Speaking of change, Roman lowered his voice. I heard Amelia is working as a hostess at Bellini's now. Bellini's was a mid-tier restaurant in River North, not terrible, but worlds away from the exclusive establishments Amelia had once frequented. The irony wasn't lost on Laz. She now seated others at tables, having once denied him a seat at his own. I heard, he acknowledged. Don't you want to see it? Roman pressed. After what she did, Laz shook his head slightly. There's no need. The truth was he had seen it. 3 weeks earlier, he had walked into Bellini's unannounced, taken a table in her section, and watched as recognition dawned on her face. The woman who had stood before him barely resembled the polished socialite he had married, her designer clothes replaced by a standard uniform, her confident posture diminished by months of humiliation. She had approached his table with visible trepidation. Welcome to Bellini's, she'd said, her voice lacking its former assurance. He had simply ordered a meal, treated her with the same impersonal courtesy he would show any server, and left a standard tip. The encounter had lasted less than an hour, but it had confirmed what he already knew. Amelia Monroe had been thoroughly erased, replaced by a shadow of her former self. And Rhett? Roman asked, pulling Laz back to the present. Still fighting the charges? Unsuccessfully. Laz sipped his drink. His legal team abandoned him after he couldn't pay their fees. He's using a public defender now. Roman chuckled. From private jets to public defenders in 6 months. Almost poetic. Almost, Laz agreed, and as the evening progressed, Laz found himself approached by Bennett Whitfield, a prominent journalist known for his profiles of Chicago's business elite. "Mr. Monroe," Whitfield began, "I've been hoping to speak with you about a feature I'm working on. Resilience in business is the theme." Laz regarded him cautiously. "What aspects of resilience interest you?" "Well," Whitfield smiled slightly, "you've become something of a case study. A personal betrayal that would have derailed most men seemed to barely affect your business trajectory. In fact, Monroe Technologies has shown stronger growth since your divorce." "Focus is a powerful tool," Laz replied neutrally. Indeed, the journalist studied him with professional curiosity, though many wonder about the personal cost. "Do you regret how things played out? The very public nature of it all?" Laz considered the question, thinking back to that night at La Veta, the moment he realized there was no seat for him at his own birthday dinner. The cold calculation in Amelia's eyes, the smug satisfaction on Rhett's face. "No," he said finally, "I don't regret anything." Whitfield pressed further. "Nothing at all?" The severity of their downfall has raised eyebrows. Some might call it excessive. Laz met the journalist's gaze directly. "They made their choices. I simply ensured they lived with the consequences." "In your personal life now? Has this experience changed how you approach relationships?" "It's clarified certain priorities," Laz acknowledged. "Trust has to be earned, not assumed." Later, as he prepared to leave the gala, Laz paused on the museum steps, looking out at the Chicago skyline illuminated against the night sky. The city had been a backdrop for both his greatest successes and his most personal betrayal. Now it witnessed his continued rise, unhindered by those who had tried to bring him down. His driver held the car door open. "Home, sir." Laz nodded, settling into the back seat. As the car pulled away from the curb, he reflected on the past 6 months. The calculated dismantling of Amelia and Rhett had required precision, patience, and an unflinching commitment to justice as he defined it. Some might view his actions as cold-blooded revenge. He saw them differently as the necessary response to those who had mistaken his composure for weakness, his trust for vulnerability. The car stopped at a red light, and through the window, Laz caught sight of Bellini's restaurant. Through the glass, he could just make out Amelia's figure, seating a couple at a table by the window. For a brief moment, their eyes met across the distance. He didn't wave, didn't nod, didn't acknowledge her in any way. The light changed, and the car moved forward, leaving Bellini's and Amelia behind. In the following weeks, news broke that Rhett Calloway had accepted a plea deal, admitting to multiple counts of financial fraud in exchange for a reduced sentence. He would serve a minimum of 5 years in a federal prison. His reputation permanently destroyed, his business empire dismantled beyond recovery. Amelia continued her slow fade into obscurity, no longer mentioned in the social columns that had once chronicled her every move. The offshore accounts remained frozen, the subject of ongoing investigation. Whatever plans she and Rhett had made for a luxurious escape had evaporated completely. Laz himself moved forward, his focus firmly on the future. Monroe Technologies announced a major expansion into Asian markets. His personal fortune doubled. New opportunities emerged daily. At a charity event that winter, a young reporter approached him at the bar. "Mr. Monroe, what do you think about Rhett Calloway's sentencing last week?" Laz gave her a measured look. "I think the legal system worked as intended." "And what about the rumors that you orchestrated his downfall as revenge for his affair with your ex-wife?" "I don't respond to rumors," he replied calmly. Rhett Calloway faced consequences for his own actions, nothing more. The reporter persisted. "Do you regret anything about how the situation unfolded?" Laz considered the question, remembering the moment when he'd walked out of La Veta, humiliated but unbroken. The weeks of strategic planning that followed. The systematic dismantling of those who had betrayed him, that a small smile touched his lips. "Only that I didn't order dessert that night." He turned and walked away, leaving the reporter to interpret his words however she chose. Behind him, conversations resumed, the city's elite discussing the man who had taught Chicago's most memorable lesson in consequences. Lazarus Monroe had lost a wife, but retained everything that truly mattered: his business, his dignity, and the knowledge that no one would ever again mistake his composure for weakness. In the end, He hadn't just survived betrayal. He had transformed it into his most definitive victory.